Donald Trump is getting humiliated by Iran as he's not only agreed to pay them, but they've already received funds before a deal has been signed. Now, this comes to us from Reuters, who reports that UAE has been authorized by the United States to release $10 billion of frozen assets to Iran, $3 billion of which have already been received. Now, UAE does not get this authorization without Donald Trump, and there has been speculation for weeks now that Donald Trump would have a third party, an other outside country, releasing the funds so he can say he had nothing to do with it. And this is massive because Donald Trump swore Iran would receive no money, that there would be no exchange of money after he's been trashing Obama for doing it for years. Now we're learning, according to Reuters, that they're releasing $10 billion and Iran has already received money before they've inked a deal, which makes me think the other things we're hearing are likely true, that Iran is going to maintain control of the Strait of Hormuz, that they're not going to have to give up their nuclear program, that they're going to get some reparations. This is a massive concession by Donald Trump and a pure embarrassment.
So Donald Trump's losses are really stacking up this week, but this Iran deal is the worst. Every single news article you look up, they talk about how this is a total embarrassment, humiliation for the United States, and even Israel thinks it's capitulation. Even Fox News is saying that this deal is embarrassing and humiliates the president. Republicans in Congress are saying that his deal is worse than Obama's, the deal that Trump ripped up because he said it was terrible. Because remember, under Obama's deal, which was working, the Strait of Hormuz was open. This supposed deal by Donald Trump does reopen the strait, but now Iran is going to start charging us fees for any ship that crosses through it. Also, Iran just has a pinky promise now to not build any nuclear weapons. Under Obama, we had 24-hour surveillance of their activities. There is none of that under Trump's deal. Under Obama's peace deal, he released $2 billion of their frozen money to them. Donald Trump is releasing $24 billion right off the bat, and then giving them another $300 billion to rebuild their infrastructure. But it's lost on absolutely no one in the news media that this $300 billion, some of it might be used for their infrastructure, but a lot of it is going to be used to rebuild their military capabilities and rebuild their missile batteries. Donald Trump bombed the shit out of Iran for 4 months, and now he's giving them hundreds of billions of dollars in order to further increase their military capabilities. He said he wanted nothing from them but total and complete surrender, and that's basically what he just did for them. This deal that Donald Trump puts in place actually makes Iran stronger than they were before he bombed them. Just like China, he's now making Iran great again. But also he promised regime change when the whole thing started, and even though he destroyed their leader, they now have a more radical, younger leader. So again, helps them. And Iran is now emboldened by the fact that they just defeated a major superpower in a war. And we know that Russia and China and North Korea are paying attention to this. Under Donald Trump, the US is just a paper tiger. Xi Jinping now knows that if he goes after Taiwan, Donald Trump's not going to do jack shit. Trump stupidly tore up Obama's Iran deal, not just because he hates Obama, but because he thought that if he did something similar, he would get a Nobel Peace Prize. But now he bombed the shit out of Iran, he's now paying them hundreds of billions of dollars, which is just going to make their military stronger, and all of our prices are going up in the process. Our country, and especially our president, are a fucking embarrassment on the global stage.
And when he signed that, in many ways, he signed a kind of death warrant for American respect and power in the world. You learned, didn't you, this week, MAGA? There's no genius. There's no secret sauce in there. There's no special magical negotiating power. The Iranians played him like a fiddle. Absolutely nothing about this situation ever was in Trump's control once he fired the first missile. We are led by a weak man. We are led by a man who really doesn't give a shit about America's troops. They would have stacked bodies by the tens of thousands in a war with Iran, and they knew it. We didn't have a strategy because Trump never has a strategy. Trump just wanted it to be over. He's bored. He's restless. He's tired. He doesn't like what's happening because it's not good for his polling. Trump lost the war with Iran. He signed a capitulation, a surrender, a humiliation in the beautiful mirrored halls of Versailles.
For years, many MAGA voters believed Donald Trump would always take the toughest possible stance against American rifle. But now, a growing political debate is raising uncomfortable questions, and some supporters are not happy about the answer. As tension involving Iran continues to dominate international headlines, critics are claiming that Trump's approach failed to deliver the decisive outcome many of his supporters expected, adding fuel to the controversy, key shipping routes remain under pressure, creating concern about global trade, energy market, and economic stability. Across social media, political forums, and talk shows, some frustrated voters are asking whether the promises of strength and dominance on the world stage match reality. For these critics, the situation represents a major disappointment. They expected bold victories. Instead, they see unresolved conflict and continuing uncertainty. Supporters of Trump strongly reject that narrative. They argue that avoiding a wider military confrontation is no weakness, it's common sense. They believe preventing escalation and protecting American interests should always take priority over endless conflicts abroad. What makes this debate so explosive is that it touches on a bigger question. What does strength actually look like in a modern geopolitics? Is it winning through force, or is it avoiding a costly confrontation altogether?
Donald Trump has officially surrendered to Iran, and his supporters are struggling tonight trying to understand how he failed. Now, if you missed it tonight, Donald Trump has officially signed the Memorandum of Understanding with Iran, and it is a horrible deal for the U.S. and complete surrender and caving to Iran. They are going to get almost $400 billion in restitution and unfrozen assets, along with the control of the Strait of Hormuz, and they don't have to give up anything except go back to pre-war conditions. This is complete surrender by Donald Trump, but his supporters are having a very hard time because they recognize how bad this deal is, and they don't understand how Trump could do this. There's no way for them to spin it. They know Donald Trump lost, and they're having a rough go. Now, many are saying, trust in Trump, the process isn't over, there's still a final deal. Others are trying to blame J.D. Vance, and others are just saying, you know what? I've been duped by this guy, and they're done with Trump. No matter how you slice it, this is a cave by Donald Trump, and his supporters are having the night they earned.
CNN just released a brutal supercut of Trump railing against Obama's Iran deal for the last 10 plus years, and it is amazing. Here's the clip.
I would have never given him back the money. I would have said, the money is off the table, let's start negotiating. And you know what? I would have won that negotiation. We can't continue to make deals like that horrible Iran deal where we give them $150 billion back. The Iran deal was so bad. We paid $150 billion to sign a horrible agreement.
So after withdrawing from Obama's Iran deal, we now have a deal that gives Iran an extra $300 billion and has less nuclear guarantees. Iran literally just humiliated us on the world stage. If you preferred Obama's deal, give me a follow. You are my type of people.
So, the President of the United States, the blithering idiot who 77 million Americans thought it was a good idea to elect president, was in Pennsylvania today. He may still be in Pennsylvania, I don't know, and I don't much give a shit. But he was there today because things are going very, very poorly for him politically, you know, just having surrendered this war in Iran. And, of course, the economy is in the toilet from all the stupid shit he's done. And so he and his team, for some reason, think it's a good idea to put him in front of people. That the way to turn things around for him is to get him out there more and to have him start talking. I don't know why they think that, but they apparently do. So, with that in mind, here's how that went.
He gets her, and she gets her. And the mother's screaming, darling, I love you, darling. And the father's looking, saying she has no chance. And she's like this, you see, drops him. And she's like devastated for the rest of her life.
Yeah. That 80-year-old buffoon is the President of the United States. No, we're not a banana republic or anything. So that's what he said, among other incoherent nonsense, while he was speaking with a bunch of truck drivers who were brought in to use as props behind him. That is what he said in order to sell his Iran surrender. That was primarily, from what I saw from other clips, that was primarily the intent of this appearance, was to convince people that his surrender was actually some sort of great strategic victory. So he read a couple of prepared remarks, and then he did what I just showed you. Good Lord, when is this going to end? Okay, but, you know, as you might expect, that didn't really go too well for him. Let's put this in context, shall we? Here's what the American people think of his war with Iran, his illegal war with Iran. By the way, I just read, before I started recording here, that the Senate has voted to block Donald Trump from any further military action in Iran. They have voted to block him under the War Powers Act. The House of Representatives already did this like a week or two ago. It's largely symbolic, but nonetheless, more and more Republicans in Congress are, I don't know, finding some semblance of a spine. I don't want to give them too much credit or anything, because there were only like 4 Republicans who joined the Democrats to vote to block Trump and his war powers. This whole thing is such a freaking joke. This War Powers Act, what a joke. You know, the Constitution, clearly in Article 1, gives only Congress the authority to declare war and makes it clear that a president has no authority to take the country to war or to engage in acts of war unless it has been approved by Congress. But the Congress, over generations really, has just made a mockery of that, giving the, you know, Trump isn't the first president to take illegal military action. He's just the latest. And not only has this Congress failed to do a damn thing.
But I'm thrilled to report, and by the way, those last 2 days were brutal. $200 million worth of bombs. And, you know, it is expensive too, by the way, aside from everything else. And they knew I was coming for a third night. We informed them we're coming for a third night. They didn't have their Navy. It sunk.
So again, him talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. At one point, he even says $1 billion worth of bombs that he dropped on Iran, only for him to wave the white flag of surrender. Hey, I spent hundreds of millions or billions of your taxpayer funds, the American people, your taxpayer funds, to bomb a country that I'm now surrendering to.
I know is every time we talked about the possibility of peace, the stock market shot up like a rocket ship. It never went down. They didn't like it. The people, you know, the stock market is more brilliant than anybody there is, including the people on this stage, other than me, of course. Let's see. I don't know. What do you think, Scott? Is the stock?
See how Marco Rubio can't even smile at this point? Like he's just visibly dead inside. He flinched when Trump said what he said about the stock market. He can't even smile when Trump is like teeing him up to smile. Okay, smile. And he's doing it on camera, on stage, in front of the entire world. That's how upset Marco Rubio is about this surrender, this memorandum of understanding. He understands both on the substance and the politics. Trump and Rubio have been humiliated. Remember, we discussed the bombshell Axios report just a few days ago. Rubio was one of Trump's cabinet secretaries to say, yeah, this deal sucks. But you got to go along with it because Trump's the cult leader. And you're seeing it play out all on Rubio's face.
We had this deal done. You had a deal that was going to give them legally a nuclear weapon. And if that happened, Israel would have been blown away. And in all fairness to Bibi Netanyahu, who happens to be a good man, gets a little excited sometimes. But he happens to be a very good man. We've had an amazing partnership. He's been an amazing prime minister. We have a little dispute over Lebanon. I say, you can do a little softer touch, Bibi. You don't have to knock down a building every time somebody walks into it.
So again, he's publicly, lashing out at Netanyahu, which I'm all for. But again, the reason that Netanyahu does what he does in part is because Trump has even more so than the Biden administration, been incredibly permissive of his excesses.
From Hezbollah. But it's been an amazing partnership. But he will say, we're the big partner and he's the very small partner, and that's true. So he came to the country and he begged Barack Hussein Obama.
He begged Obama to start a war with Iran, and Obama, Biden, Clinton, even Bush all said, no, you're the only one dumb enough to fall for it, and it is all your fault. But again, he's trying to rebut this idea that Netanyahu is pulling his strings, which I think is a bit reductive.
Giving billions of dollars to theocratic lunatics who want to murder us is not a good idea. I think the president, unfortunately, is receiving bad advice on this deal.
I was just going to ask you about the Iran deal, what you think about it. But this whole nuclear deal now, no better than what we had back in 2015, back when Barack Obama cut the deal. And that's where Donald Trump winds us up after all of this. What an embarrassment.
We went to war for what? The idea of doing something in the Straits of Hormuz. The Straits were being used peacefully before our invasion, and now we have to negotiate they'll be used peacefully in the future.
It's going to get access to its frozen assets, and what is Iran giving up for this? Nothing. Nothing. They're merely reaffirming what they've said before about nuclear weapons.
Well, all I've seen is public reporting about it, but the public reporting to me suggests we're giving up an awful lot more to get a lot less than the JCPOA.
Donald Trump couldn't explain why he got into this war. Remember, it was going to be about regime change. And now he can't explain how to get out of it.
I read the news so that you don't have to. So I don't know if you remember, but Trump spent years calling Obama's nuclear agreement a disaster. He scrapped it, triggered years of escalation, and now seems to be landing somewhere that looks suspiciously similar. So as you can see, the headline says, humiliation. Donald Trump battles claims his Iran deal is worse than Obama's. Come in. Let me tell you exactly what's going on. So the article basically says that Trump's attempt to end the conflict with Iran may have, helped restore shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, calmed oil prices, and boosted equity markets. But critics are asking whether the concessions made to Tehran are worth the cost. Months of war, billions of dollars, depleted US weapon stocks, and damaged reputation with allies. The comparison being made is with Obama's 2015 Iran nuclear deal, the JCPOA. So that agreement gave Iran sanctions reliefs in exchange for limits on its nuclear program. Trump hated that deal. He called it the road to a nuclear weapon and scrapped it during his first term and said this deal would be the complete opposite. But here's the problem. Critics say the basic shape may not be that different. Iran gets relief, the US gets promises or limits around Iran's nuclear program, and everyone argues about whether Tehran can be trusted. Now, for their part, Trump's administration are saying that this is completely different because Iran's nuclear program has now been completely destroyed. But Trump has not released the full text of the agreement, which is due to be signed in Switzerland. So this is a point that is making some Republicans very nervous. One senator said a deal of this size deserves proper review and that the Senate should examine the details. And others are asking the obvious question. If Iran could not be trusted under Obama, why should it be trusted now? There's also criticism over reports of possible sanctions relief, a potential $30 billion investment.
Now it's your turn. Do you think Trump's handling of international tension shows strength or weakness? And should voters judge leaders based on their promises or their final results? Drop your thoughts in the comment below, and if you enjoy hard-hitting political analysis, global affairs, and stories mainstream media often overlook, make sure you subscribe, turn on notification, and smash that like button right now. Most important,
ends up looking like a messier, more expensive version of the one he scrapped. That becomes a huge political problem, because then the question isn't just did the deal work? The question is, did America spend years escalating a crisis only to come back to the same table with higher cost, weaker trust, and fewer options? And that is the danger of turning diplomacy into ego, because eventually the deal that you mocked might become the deal that you need.